Good morning, John.
Good morning. How are you?
We're on, as promised. It takes so long to set up the streaming and get it working that I thought I'd do it before. So, hello, everybody. This is less formal than what we used to do on Fridays. We were just having a coffee and talking about the weekend just passed and the week ahead. And didn't really expect to have any members here for the first one because it's new and we only announced it last night. But hello, John. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks, Steve. I'm good. The sun is out. It's very, very bright. Yeah, not too bad.
And you've got a new gig starting today, is that right?
I have, yes. Starting, yes.
And that's why you're all kind of spruced up.
Yes, I have shaved. But probably more interestingly, I've got a podcast, did an interview with Tim Sheens yesterday. That's up and...
So you've been doing...
Today on so... yeah, I think that's about before... I think about May 20 is roughly when it started. Yeah, so 127 episodes has flown by.
Wow, that's impressive. 127 episodes, mate. So I guess it's Origin this week. Everyone's talking about Origin, and I'm actually drinking the coffee, by the way, because I want coffee, not because it's a prop and not like the show's called Monday Morning Coffee. Origin this week, mate. Are you concerned about the sort of high tackle edict and all that sort of stuff, or is that a bit alarmist and you're looking forward to it? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I don't think it's alarmist. I think you've got to be a little bit concerned. It's kind of Origin's always played under its own rules, isn't it? And it probably won't be great if we see 10v10 or 9v9. Or we could have Origin Rugby League 9s, couldn't we? But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm always looking forward to Origin. I know you're not a massive Origin fan, and there's a lot of people out there, I think, understandably, who see Origin as a barrier or an issue to the growth of the international game. I think we can have both. I think we can enjoy both. But yeah, Townsville will be interesting. Queensland, another advantage for them. And obviously they've got players, with tonsillitis or injured. They've always got issues, haven't they? There's always someone with a punctured lung who's going to walk out of hospital play. But yeah, the crackdown, yeah. I don't know. I can see both sides. I hope we get the Origin game that we want. At the same time, we can't bring back the biff and the shoulder charge and go crazy either. There's got to be some common sense, I think, involved.
There has been, the thing is, the one thing that isn't unusual so far is when you get warnings on Origin Eve regarding discipline, because they've been doing that since 1980 something. So, there has been the obligatory warning about, we will send players to sin bin for high shots and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I mean, the longer the year goes on, the more I think the 6 again is a disaster. And I think adopting it for the World Cup is a real worry. Like, when you got kind of, Greece and Jamaica and these countries playing against full-time pros, it's I don't think it's really done anything. I mean, I'm all in favour of a quicker, more athletic game and less dangerous collisions, not because I find it more entertaining, but because I see it as a way to survival for the sport. But the 6 again just doesn't seem to have achieved much at all to me. It's and it's just made it more difficult for teams that might be able to hang in there for longer, because the scorelines tend to blow out.
Yeah, it's a tough one. When I interviewed Tim yesterday, he's not a fan of it. He sees it making a game kind of more structured and predictable. And I think there is a lot more criticism to it. I think when it came in, people were excited, and it seemed a lot more expansive and kind of, return to the good old days. But now there's a bit of a movement against it, isn't it? I think you just don't know when a six again is going to be called, why it's called, how often they're called, and in terms of the World Cup, you're 100% right there. I mean, it's going to enforce the gap, emphasise the gap, between the full time and the semi-pros, the ball and slow down the ruck. So we could see, I don't know, could we see 100? Could we see 150? Yeah, I mean, well, we don't want to see cricket scores. We want the gap to be less between the top and the bottom. So, New South Wales, Queensland, both teams are used to it and applying to it. But in terms of an international arena, I don't think that's the right way forward. I don't want to.
Yeah, that wall behind it looks like the doorway's been bricked closed. That didn't happen while you were asleep, did it? There is another way out of that room.
There is a fireplace that's more ceremonial than actually used these days, put it that way.
All right, okay. Now, obviously, Challenge Cup, we've got Saints and Cass in the final, which was determined at the weekend, and that's a close second in importance behind Origin, I think, as far as what we should be talking about this morning. And everyone wants to. I think I put it up, and it got huge engagement. The Theo Farge try. I mean, the majority of people will kind of think that's just how it had to happen. I think, from what I read, 75% of people commenting on it thought, well, it's just bad luck. The guy did his Achilles, and there wasn't a hand laid on him, and unfortunately, he was just running the ball off the line, and he dropped the ball, and there's not much else you can do. But you're from a sort of soccer football background, and people who are in the country who they do keep an eye on football. A lot of rugby league fans do, if not more than an eye. They say that there's lots of precedents in football for sportsmanship being shown, and the guy grabbing the ball.
There is.
Yeah.
There is and there isn't. I mean, Paolo Catania did it once, and people can hold that up. But that's one game in however many million games of football, and I know you're not a football soccer guy, but you know all about the instances of diving and everything else. So I don't think one example of good sportsmanship weighs out a million bad examples. For me, it's a bit of a storm in the teacup. It's really unfortunate. You don't want to see it because it kind of ruined the game a bit. And obviously for Josh Griffin, that's kind of his season. But Theo Farge did what his coaches, what everyone would have done. You play to the whistle. The ref didn't blow the whistle. You pick the ball up, you score a try. He didn't do anything illegal. I don't think he did anything dodgy. I think he would have been, Brett Hodgson did not have a problem with it when he was asked, which is a big indicator. And the sad thing is, I think you've seen players go down with injuries before. You've got to protect the ball. You hold onto the ball until the kind of play or the tackle is completed. Horrific injury, but what was Farge supposed to do? Just stop. You play to the ref's whistle, and you get taught that from under fives, under sixes, under sevens, in basically any and every sport. And that's what he did. That's what Farge did. I don't have an issue with it. It's bad if you're a whole fan, but them's the way the cookie crumbles. Yeah.
I guess the two correct teams are in the Challenge Cup final. I'd be interested to see after all this time behind closed doors where they could nudge the capacity there at Wembley. Very.
I don't think that will. I suppose the Castleford element maybe adds a bit because it's such a sort of rugby league hotbed, and they don't get to a lot of finals. They haven't been at Wembley since 2014, and they lost that day. And obviously Old Trafford 2017. But I think if you look at the crowds, the limited crowd since coming back to Super League, I don't think there's been any sellouts of the allocation, or there's not been, ridiculous demand, which I think is a bit of a concern, actually. Obviously at Lee, it was technically 6 clubs, well, 5 because St Helens were in the women's final and the men's semi, but they may have sold all their allocation then. But I can't see Wembley being a sellout or a record crowd personally, but I'd love to be proved wrong. considering I've booked my train and accommodation, and I'm looking forward to the final. I think that probably the most surprising thing was how bad Warrington were, especially in that first half.
Yeah, I mean, Jack Gibson used to say winning's in the woodwork and so is losing. And, there's something, not every time you watch Warrington, you don't watch Warrington every week and go, geez, there's something, they're cursed or whatever. I certainly don't. But certainly in some occasions when they've come up short in a big semi or something like that, you go, what's the story here? Like why does this keep happening?
They seem to have a mental fragility, I think, because you're right. They don't. They still win a lot more games than they lose, and they still win at least Challenge Cup finals. They generally win those. But that first half, they were just getting busted through the middle too easily. It was like they hadn't turned up. They hadn't got off the bus. And I don't know if you saw that video, Steve. I think it was. Is it What About Bevan? Or there's a Warrington fan podcast of Mike Cooper coming off the field past Steve Price, and he kind of nudges him in the stomach, or the shoulder, whether it's accidentally or intentionally. It just, as I say, a picture says 1,000 words. It didn't bode particularly well. Check it out on Twitter if you haven't.
Yeah, I didn't see it. I didn't see it. Who was that? Who was the player again? I guess
Mike Cooper was coming off.
Yeah.
He was being replaced, and he kind of bumped into Steve Price on the sideline, and Steve Price just kind of like looked back at him and said a few choice words. Whether it was just a complete one of those accidents or there's a bit of subtext in terms of players are not happy with the coach or the coach is not happy with the players, who knows? But yeah, it wasn't probably the greatest look you want on live TV, free to air.
We've got some more news today with the North American Rugby League to put out a press release. It's as we've reported on the site that the clubs are only going to play friendlies this year. I don't think anything's changed since that original story, really. I did see that there was some, they were kind of blaming the USARL for banning players from test selection and sort of blaming various, external factors. But anyway, I'm also hoping to speak to Ricky Wilby and Rob Curtis at 5 p.m. today. But they're putting out a press release around that time, which will, I assume, just say that they're hoping to resume in 2022. But there's some obvious questions. There's no need to be too cunning or even aggressive in asking questions, because there's some really basic questions that anyone would ask if they had the opportunity. So, I'll be looking to ask those questions. And I guess if you want to contact us through social media with anything you'd like to know about the NARL over the next 8 or 9 hours, just tag us and we'll endeavour to get your questions answered. John, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I've not followed the whole NARL thing as closely as yourself. I mean, it always seemed pretty ambitious to be starting up in the middle of COVID, particularly in America, a country that's been, badly ravaged by COVID. But yeah, it's very sort of typical rugby league, isn't it? Doesn't seem to be a lot of transparency, a lot of information out there. And from what I can gather, you might be able to correct me on this, but it didn't seem like a lot of engagement with local media or kind of actual people in the States. I mean, it's great reaching out to people in Australia or England and whatever else, but you've got to really engage your local markets. Otherwise, how are you going to get people to turn up every week?
Yeah,
you're not going to get forced.
It's not all about me. I mean, like engaging local media is great. It's a good thing, It's probably as important as having a nice logo or, getting on Twitter and stuff. But I mean, it's not really the center of it, is it? I mean, in year one, you're trying to put games on, and you're trying to get through your program as best you can, and meet your commitments to your broadcasters, and pay your central distribution on time to the clubs. And those basic things, for whatever reason, didn't happen because investors pulled out. But they added people to a board, but they didn't. As far as I can see, we didn't know who the people already on the board were. So there was I've heard the name of the guy on the West Coast. His name is Lars something. The West Coast guy. He
Metallica.
Sorry?
Is it a guy from Metallica? Is it a drummer?
It's not Lars Ulrich. It's not Lars Ulrich. No. He'd be able to rescue them. I reckon he'd be having enough money.
Yeah.
To bail them out.
Get a few quid.
Yeah. He obviously was, burned or whatever, and has kept his head down because the whole West Coast division fell over, and the funding that he thought was there was not there. So, it's anyway. There's a lot of really. A lot of questions in Toronto too, where, as far as I can ascertain, Gary Sloan, who was a partner in this venture, bought the IP of the Toronto Wolfpack, and they haven't signed a player or they haven't got a coach. They haven't done anything. And now Gary Sloan has, supposedly distanced himself from the whole thing. So where that leaves a Wolfpack, who knows? I feel sorry for people like Monty Gaddis in Chicago, who's obviously put in a lot of his own time, like all his own time, hoping that there was some central funding coming his way, and then getting told. And he, at the weekend, reached out on Twitter begging Super League and the RFL and the NRL to help them, so obviously there's no help, on the ground there. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting day in that regard. I guess the other thing to discuss a little bit before we go, I thought we might do this for half an hour. I want to see if anyone is having trouble contacting us. And bear in mind, I didn't actually embed this on the site because I figured, this is kind of like the front window of rugbyleaguehub.com long reads to everyone who's not a subscriber. But the people who can be on the show, and the only people who can be on the show are those who subscribe. As I said, the link changed at the last minute. I'll just see if anyone's trying to contact us. Anyway. Amazing. No one. It's a bit early. Maybe it's a bit early for everybody who's maybe we can get everyone. We can sort of ask everyone what the best time is to do this. It's a bit early for me normally, but I went to bed quite early last night. The World Cup. People in Australia don't think it's going to happen. People involved in rugby league in Australia don't think it's going to happen. Every week they say it'll be cancelled this week, and yet it doesn't get cancelled. John, do you have any inside information on that? Is it full steam ahead as far as you're concerned?
I don't have any inside information. I think we talked about this before. It's just that the issue is the quarantine and the immigration. I mean, if the Olympics, I think you mentioned, if the Olympics are going ahead and they're sorting out the Australian Olympic team, then hopefully they can sort out the different Southern Hemisphere sides that are going to be going through immigration in Australia. But there's still got to be huge doubts on it. I mean, it's funny that over here it's like everything's great, we're continuing on, blah blah blah. But in Australia, everyone's like, well, yeah, can't see it happening. But I mean, yeah, hopefully we can get a resolution, some way to sort of sort out. I mean, this is, sorting out immigration for the players, the staff, getting them vaccinated. This is what you need government support for. Peter V'landys is supposed to be well connected. St. Peter V'landys, Superman. Hopefully, he can pull some strings.
The people are telling me multiple, sources, as it were, that the hope is that Downing Street gets involved. That because they're doing a trade deal with Australia at the moment, they'll basically, and this is the first event in the UK reopening, the first international event in the UK reopening, that there is there's a enthusiasm for getting Downing Street involved and for tying the World Cup into the trade deal, where if you want us to send you your goods tax free, then you've got to send us your rugby league players and you've got to make quarantine concessions. So from my understanding of it is, and I've heard that from multiple sources, so my understanding of it is that the World Cup relies on Downing Street. If the UK government doesn't intervene, then it may very well have to be postponed, and that's what's happening at the moment behind the scenes. That's my understanding.
How many people in the UK government do you think know what rugby league is? Or
Yeah, that's why I'm not
different-
overly. That's why I'm not overly optimistic.
Yeah,
But allegedly, allegedly because they funded it for 25 million, even though it was a previous government, because they funded it for 25 million, and because they want to show that the country is open for business again, and because Australia just happens to be the place where they're doing a trade deal by sheer coincidence at the moment, and 70% of the players live in Australia, that all those things will come together and get them interested. But if they don't get interested, then I don't think the players are coming. So I think that's the frantic stuff that's going on behind closed doors at the moment.
well, yeah, I really hope that is worked out. I think it'll come down to the players as well, or personal preference. I mean, I know of at least one player who probably won't play in the World Cup because he wants to go and visit his family in Australia, and he might not get that chance in the off season. Otherwise, not seeing family for 2 years. And then there's the kind of, I think you might have been on that tour, Steve, or the 2001 was it Four Nations or was it Ashes with the September 11, and they were worried about terrorism.
Yeah,
obviously.
They had to have. I mean, the Wiggles are on tour, but the Australian Rugby League team wouldn't come.
Yeah, New York's not that close to London or Huddersfield in terms of terrorist hotspots. But yeah, I mean, I could see lots of players pulling out. I think that's where you've got to get the RLPA. You've got to sort of bring everyone's heads together and work out a solution. I really hope it does come off, because I think the sport in the UK needs it, and internationally. I mean, we've not had any internationals since the end of 2019.
Yeah.
And I think we need that, but I'm not confident. I think it's just a case of,
the government does get involved. Let's say the government gets involved, right? And they say that the quarantine when you go back will be covered, or that the quarantine requirement will in some way be relaxed. By then, there's still going to be players who don't want to come. It's still going to have an impact on the balance of power between the countries, and it's potentially going to help England win the World Cup.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, it could be a much leveler playing field. I mean, even if you probably get your top 20 Australian players pulling out, they're still going to field a pretty strong team. But I think if you're Lebanon or Samoa or Tonga, and you get a lot of pullouts of Greece, that's probably going to affect them more. But World Cup wins on technicalities would. I don't think anyone would care in England, but it'd be something different.
I guess if the governing bodies are all behind it, and the governments get involved, and they basically make the conditions the same as the Olympics, as far as our quarantine is concerned, and players still choose not to come, I don't know what else the organisers can do.
Yeah.
And also, probably should mention this one, a bit of a curly one, but some players are anti-vaxxers. They won't get. If you need a vaccine to come over, they won't come.
Yeah.
So, you can't. You can't allow for that. You can allow for the fact that if 70% of the players can't travel because they're going to have to pay for quarantine out of their own pockets, and they're going to lose 2 weeks of their holiday time from their NRL clubs. And there's not going to be any concessions for them at all. They're going to be treated like normal travellers. You can pretty much go, well, we're going to put the whole thing off a year. But if you get concessions and you move the mountain to Muhammad, and still some players don't want to come, well, then I think you go ahead with it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think you're right. If they can get concessions on returning to Australia, that's a big, and the cost. Who pays for what? That's a big one. But you'll still get players who won't come, but you push on regardless, because otherwise you're left in a stasis of no World Cup, aren't you?
What do you make of the New England jersey, mate? Do you like the New England jersey, which is the 95 one?
I don't mind it. Yeah, I don't mind it. I'm not a massive jersey kit nerd, but I do like, especially after talking to Tim Sheens, I do like the Mossy Maso Combined Nations All Stars one. So
I haven't seen
particularly
it.
as that
The public hasn't seen it, have they? The all combined nations.
Yeah, no, it's been. You can go on the Mossy Musso Foundation website. I think it's up and out. I think probably the main thing is I think £10 of every sale goes to Mossy and his family. So
yeah.
Maybe you should stock that, Steve. I'll go out and buy one. So.
Well, I've actually asked Lee Jenkinson to stock both jumpers, and he was open to it initially. He's a fellow at Oxon, but then he said, no, we want to keep it exclusive sale. And that, a lot of it could be to do with the charity. That's fine with me. I'm not really in a position to be throwing around hundreds of pounds at the moment. There's plenty of bills stacking up. So I'm happy. I thought about just buying some retail, England shirts retail, 50 quid each, and sending them out to Australia and just selling them for the cost of an NRL shirt. But, it's a lot of trouble, and you don't know if anyone's going to buy one. So I won't do that, Just on eBay. They can't stop you putting it on eBay, right? They can stop,
That's true.
Yeah.
One thing before just going off on a tangent, I did notice with the combined Nations All-Star v England game on the 25th of June at Warrington, I think there are at least 2 or 3 other Super League games on at the same time, which to me is, pardon my French, fucking madness. And also I think they're on Sky as well. So I don't even know, is the Combined Nations game not being televised?
Well, it's a separate property, so I think it's out to market at the moment. Like, I think they're trying to sell it.
It's an England Test match in a World Cup year, hopefully. Fingers crossed. Surely it's got to be, you got to have clear air for people to watch it and get behind it.
It's just the medieval structure here. It needs to be bulldozed. It just needs to be bulldozed and start again. And the bulldozer is made of not metal. It's made of the bulldozer is made of folding stuff. So someone's got to come in with a bit of that, and then it can be fixed. On that note, we've been going for half an hour. Thanks, everybody. We had one person on Twitter go, the time was bad for them. So anyone can watch it back. And please contact us at League Hubcom, no dots or anything. That's on Twitter. I think it's Rugby League Hub on Instagram, /League Hubcom on Facebook. And tell us when the optimum time of the week is for us to do this, so you can join us. John, good luck with your new gig today. I'd give you another job. You dress so smart, your hair, collar.
Shave.
You'll be the number one with a bullet on Zoom today. Okay, thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining us. It was awesome, and I like the vibe. I thought it worked. Maybe I'm the only one. We'll see you next week at some